What's up, guys? This is Fiasco, and we're playing Ultimate General Civil War on the Confederate Let's Play. We're taking a look here at the army I'm going to be taking into our next fight, as well as the potential reputation awards and our campaign leading up to Second Bull Run. I'm particularly excited about those Enfields, and also possibly that weird, I'm probably saying that wrong, wired. So these are the Cedar Mountain is what we're going to be fighting today. Note that the army is currently around 73,000. Manassas Depot is a great opportunity to pick up some weapons, and then there's Second Bull Run itself. So we're going to be fighting them in chronological order. So we'll start off, and we're sending Second Corps into this fight. This is an opportunity. This particular fight's a bit grindy. It's a relatively difficult one, and it's also an opportunity to get them some experience. So we need to attack an entrenched position. I'm aware I'm going to take some losses. I'd rather bear those losses on the units that I can afford to replace, basically. So I spent some time. There's no need to do a video where I build the army. I spent some time kind of upgrading Second Corps after Gainesville, just putting some muskets here and there, some rifles here and there, and beefing up some units. I've deliberately chosen in this fight to use the lowest level of officer I can get away with in a lot of these units. I'm trying to level up some of these officers. So broadly speaking, we have, I want to say 5 smoothbore units with 42s, Springfield 42s, 3 or 4 units with muskets, and then carbine cav, a unit of Napoleons, a unit of 12-pound howitzers, and a unit of Parrott guns. And the intention for this fight is I want to start spreading out the experience. So up until now, I've been leaning pretty heavily into my First Corps, and a lot of the units there are 2 stars. Are very good experience. They've got very good weapons. It's a great corps. Like, I've got no complaints about the way First Corps is coming together. But now I need to start trying to spread that experience out, so I don't have to lean too heavily on one grouping of units. So I've got kind of 3 different task forces that I'm building here. We've got 16th Infantry, and the cavalry is going to be going on a far right hook, and they're going to kind of try and wing their way around the enemy. This big block of the smoothbore units on the left is going to be sort of bursting in the front door in a kind of grenadierish type action, where I'm not expecting them to do a lot of trading shots. And then these 3 brigades here, they're all rifle armed units. Relatively small, right? They're all relatively small brigades, and their intention is to stand on this side of the creek in these blocks of woods and just trade fire with the rebel or the Union, especially as we try and push them into the open. So broadly speaking, I'm going to use that block of 5 units on the far left, and we're going to left hook, and we're going to use the sort of trapezoidal block of trees to the left of my left of the Union position as the attack point. So the rifle armed brigades are going to be kind of the anvil, and I'm going to use that heavier block of units as the hammer and try and push the Union southward out of their position right now in the woods and into my waiting rifles. This is a particularly kind of bloody fight because there's a large Union presence north of their defensive position that you have to contend with as well, and there's no real way to make that fight not an open field battle. So we're moving into the offensive operations. I have a screen of skirmishers out in front of the army as we advance, and so does the Union defending their territory or doing recon. They have an aggressive screen that kind of comes across the creek to meet me, and that's Crawford crossing the creek right now. And the focus for me in terms of playing this fight was to, gain some experience, level up some of these units, but also to really get better about using close range artillery. So I've always been kind of very happy with the performance of, say, 24-pound howitzers that I can sort of just set and forget. But actively utilizing artillery is something that I'm not, as a player, as good about as I'd like to be. And so for me, the focus in this fight was, hey, it's a smaller battle. I can be a little more tactical or finesseful in my application of my units and try and utilize the artillery in a more active manner. And I was actually very happy with the results. So you'll see as the game keeps going. So this is the two forces have met. You take a look at the blue and red bar up north. The Union has a slight numerical advantage. It's not crushing, but it exists. And we're in the very opening kind of brawl. So they've tried to cross the river to meet me, which is a very smart move on their part. Occupying those three little bits of trees where there's Crawford and Kant and Gordon and Tower and those skirmishers. If they were to occupy them, I wouldn't have an easy means of approaching the position. I'd be forced to fire on them from the open, which I wouldn't want to do. The block of the smoothbore armed units is doing its job. They're going to form kind of a bastion up here in this sort of trapezoid of trees and trade fire at close range with the Union in an attempt to force them back into what I'll call their trenches. It's not really a trench. It's a forest, but it's a long, thin line of forest, which may as well be trenches as far as this game's concerned. And my intention is to force them into it so that that's the safe place for them, and then I can kind of attack it from two different sides and then make holding it kind of untenable for them. But before we do that, there's this messy exchange of fire that we have to kind of go through. And we're given as good as we're getting. I mean, our units are fighting hard right now. They're all, they're low experience for the Confederacy, which it's still every single unit has a star. So low experience is kind of a rough word to use there. If anyone's played the Union campaign, they know that Union raw recruits are they're something else. They're a significantly the Confederate recruit stats start off very impressive, and you have to groom a lot of Union units to get to this level of basic minimum competency. Now it's offset when you're playing the game by the Union's relatively easy access to large numbers of Springfield. 51s and 55s, I think, or Harper's. I don't know. There's a step up from the 42, and they start having access. Oh no, it's 55s and 61s. They start having access to rifled muskets really in large number early on. So just continuing to kind of be aggressive, push forward, and now I wouldn't say we've shattered the Union defenders, but we've certainly pushed them back from their original positions, and the hammer is beginning to move into position, while the anvil has also started to get to the point where they have the Union where they want them. So we're still in trees. We're firing at units either in a creek or in the open, which is exactly what we want. We're able to leverage the rifled muskets into those units, and then we're aggressively moving forward with the Napoleonic batteries. And it occurs to me I have a lot more Napoleons than I have anything else, and I should be making more batteries of them and just kind of using them, because I've been very impressed with the kind of work that massed artillery can accomplish. This is more artillery than I usually bring. 3 batteries is usually in this kind of a fight. I usually have 2 or 1, and I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the results, actually. Even the 12-pound howitzers, which I usually kind of I shit on as being not great weapons. They did surprisingly well here. So now I'm trying to extend my left flank, trying to turn the Union flank. And this open field fight's a little messier than I'd like. I push 19th Infantry up, trying to get them a better flank angle on Geary. All right, so I got my extreme flankers here. They're ready. I end up kind of, I don't know. I don't think I use these guys exactly like what I intended to do. But I'm encircling the Union position. That's essentially what I'm doing. This is an encirclement maneuver. And though messy, it ends up kind of working out. predominantly, I think, because of the contribution of the artillery. The artillery really carries their weight here. And that might be the effect of I don't have any 2-star units, and I don't have a great preponderance of muskets. There's 2 Enfield units and I think 2 Mississippi units, which is decent for a 14 brigade battle force, but it's not, world shattering in terms of its efficacy. So we've with Gaines's Mill. Yeah, with Gaines's Mill and then Malvern Hill, I'd say those 2 battles are sort of the start of what I'll call the mid-game. You have had the time to build a self-sufficient Confederate army or Union army at the same time. The build-up to Shiloh is the first big hurdle, and that's getting your first corps off the ground. And then the build-up to Gaines's Mill and then Malvern Hill is getting your second corps off the ground. And then the build up to Second Bull Run is I think the opportunity to get that second corps some experience and start working on a third corps, because you don't need 3 corps at Second Bull Run, but it certainly helps. And we're going to see that the continued need to expand is going to be hampered not by men. I've got plenty of dudes, and not by money. I've got plenty of money. It's going to be being hampered by access to weapons. So, and good weapons, I mean. I'm going to continue to have to rely on the Springfield 42, which by this point in the war, I would say is an obsolete weapon. I'm going to need to continue to rely on that weapon well into my playthrough. And that's sort of the way in which the Confederate unit skill is offset is that Union soldiers, if you use recruits, aren't very good, and so you're thinking well, how's that balance? So they have great equipment, great access to equipment, and the Confederacy does not have that same level of access to equipment, which is why possibly I think some points in economy might be a smart buy. I've been relying on free weapons, and that's going to be, I'm not going to be able to do that forever. I've been leaning heavily into medicine to make sure that what losses I do bear I can recover some of, and that's like a point in both economy and also not veteran training, as I figure a soldier who has seen battle and still has a weapon, I'm not paying for either one of those to replace. I'm not buying a new gun, and I'm not buying a new soldier, so it's doubly efficient. And being able to ultimately recover 20% of my losses is huge in my mind. So my extreme left is struggling, and my I guess we'll call this a special forces detachment or something. They're starting to finally get into position, but the timing didn't work out, and the whole I'm gonna double flank or double envelop it's not working. So the smoothbore units are struggling because they're likely fighting against Union units that have rifles. However, the Napoleonic battery really carries its weight and continues to do so through this fight. It's I know there are better guns in the game, but that it performs very well. So I see a golden opportunity here for that supply wagon just kind of hanging out, begging to be captured, so why not capture it? On the bottom of the screen, Bates's battery, you can see them taking some counter battery fire from the Parrots, and that's what the Parrot battery is good for. It's not the only thing it's good for, but they're effective at longer and medium range firing at other artillery batteries. They do a great job with that kind of thing. So sure, I mean, yeah, if you want to give me a free supply wagon, great. I'm not going to complain about it. And then they're retreating another one towards me. So, sure, by all means, feel free to do so. So every time the Union comes out into the open, so right now it's Crawford. I'm only too happy to have them just kind of walk at me. So this is a good way if there's a supply wagon near you that you don't want to divert a line brigade to, you can detach skirmishers really quick and then have them charge it. And while they're charging, for at least in my experience, while they're charging, they won't shoot on the way in, which I know that oftentimes is a case where if you, say, run a unit or run a cav unit or something, they might pop off some shots, and then that's just, the whole reason I do this is the money aspect of it, but also, hey, it's 150 or 200 guys I can capture, and then that can turn into more recruits for me as well. So every battle I'm trying, I don't always do it, I'm trying to capture 1,000 guys so that I can get that many more recruits. But so Bayard, look at that cav unit way up north on the far left of the screen. Bayard sneaks past my line. I don't have any idea what the AI is trying to accomplish here. But I overextended my line. 18th Infantry, who's now in the back recovering. They didn't shatter, but they broke. And as a result, there's a hole that Bayard can pour through, and he does so. So I'm zooming forward with 21st Infantry, but the idea that I need to close the gap on the artillery and start pouring fire into them to hopefully negatively affect their morale. I don't think I'm going to break the unit, but hopefully I can get them to the, that 45-ish morale range where their firing is less effective. And I realized that 16th, which is my tiny Harper's Ferry unit, is, way exposed. And so I sort of redouble the offensive and press forward with all the smoothbore units, trying to bring the Union's attention elsewhere. However, the Harper's Ferry unit has a great line of fire on a lot of artillery units that I can hopefully affect as well. And, hey, we're in the woods. It's the efficacy of canister and whatnot is reduced. The benefit of this particular battle plan is that the Union doesn't really have there's no clear front line. There's not really a good place for the Union to say, like, all right, well, we can go ahead and put our forces here and fight. Like, I'm hitting them from every possible direction. Some of them, some angles more effectively than others. Yeah, sure. And in some cases, I've got more or less volume of Confederate units, but they're being hit from every direction. And there is, I guess, and they end up using it. If you go down and to the right, there's a corridor where I don't have a great deal of troops, and they can retreat that way, and that's what they end up doing. So I'm trying to close that gap now with 13th. But their position has pretty firmly been outflanked. So 16th was too far out there by itself, which, okay, that's my fault. They did, however, get some good shots into artillery. In this fight, I end up taking a pretty heavy toll on Union artillery, and these batteries are big. These are big batteries. Maybe 500 men, give or take, I think, maybe. So I keep my guns in the 12 to 14 gun range, and I think these guns are all larger. Yeah, they've all got 430 some odd guys. And I think Hall used to be larger before he took a couple of volleys too. So the envelopment or pincher has sort of succeeded. They've ceded the open field to me, and now I'm kind of coming down on them from above with the idea that it is better to be attacking downhill. And they're in a lose-lose position. So if they try and fall back, they're gonna fall back into this open terrain, and they're just gonna take fire from all my emplaced rifled units and also the artillery. And if they stand and fight, they're firing uphill. Now, yes, they're firing uphill. Or sorry, they're firing uphill, but they're also firing at guys who are in the open. So that part of it's not ideal. But the idea is that with no clear way for them to retreat, there's no clear chance for them to recover their morale. And hopefully, and it's not always the case, hopefully the units will be in that 45% morale range, and the return fire will be disorganized. All right, bringing 16th back in. That's the tiny Harper's Ferry unit. And continuing to push downward now with the smoothbore units, who, I'm taking a lot of losses, but so is the Union. I mean, this is a really grindy fight. This is partially why I used second cores. It's a lot of fresher units and a lot of weapons that were free because I already had them and am beginning to replace them in first core. And the thought process is that first core is going to be more expensive to fight this kind of battle with, and I know I can win this fight, so why not? So there's I think 2 of the different artillery batteries have both been shattered now, or maybe just 1 and some skirmishers. I know I saw 2 units shattered, but I didn't see what it was. And we're not giving them a chance to recover. We're just continuing to press the advance, continuing to attack. This is a very grindy approach, and sometimes, that's 20th just ate a bunch of canister. This is why you gotta target the artillery as soon as you can. Second Mounted Infantry is doing great work in the woods there. They're at roughly 10-to-1 kill ratio so far. It's a small unit, but they do good work. And the Union's getting pounded from the rear, so they try and retreat from the firing line to recover, and there's not really a great place for them to do so. Take a look at the top right. Notice that I've got 8 minutes in game to capture the flag, and I'm just now moving into position to do so. I'm really happy with the way the timing on that worked out as well, where I didn't trigger an end of mission clock or anything too early. So there's Bates basically out of the fight for the time being. Notice how long Prince is just standing up to all this stuff. This is the kind of damage that a unit in woods can sort of persevere through. It's phenomenal, and it's a strong indicator of why, when you're playing, you're going to want to keep your guys in cover as often as you possibly can. I mean, if you fight out in the open more than you need to, you're just taking needless casualties. So I pushed Longstreet up. I didn't mention that. So I had switched up the leadership of Second Corps. We've put James Longstreet in command of Second Corps. He's, I think he's my only 2-star general that I have right now. That'll change soon, I would imagine, because there's a bunch of 1-stars I've got that are doing pretty good. But the goal of this battle was to season a bunch of these officers, season a bunch of these troops, hopefully capture a bunch of crap from the Union. I'm very nervous about this. Gordon on my left, the right of the screen, swarming at my unit. On the one hand, they're probably tired by now, but I fall back because I can't meet that brunt and just force it back. I have to kind of give ground so they tire themselves out. I redirect, I want to say 20th and 14th Infantry to kind of form the remainder of that front. But now the Union Army is basically bunched up. And with the exception of Carroll, way to the north, they're kind of controlled. Fourth Artillery is doing a great work. Is handing out canister fire. We're just barely at musket range, which is just perfect artillery territory. And, now all of a sudden, what was me attacking an entrenched position is now my guys in cover uphill, and the Union kind of having to come to me, and they're standing in the open and all that kind of stuff. They're the ones attacking me. I'm in cover. Now, there's still plenty of forest fighting to be done on the right here, we do eventually push them out. But I think it's very smart of the AI to try and put as many of its troops there as possible to minimize the efficiency of my fire. However, their left flank is basically exposed, and there's not really a great place for them to do anything. Not a great way for them to do anything about it, and they're going to just take a lot of artillery fire. Now, the battle's technically over. I can click finish whenever I want, but I think the battle's really just started. Like, I've attained the upper hand, I would say. Like, I've pushed them out of their defensive position. Now they're compelled to try and take the flag. Okay. But there's still plenty of fight left in this Union army. So I've won the mission, I suppose. But I haven't broken the army. There's still plenty of fight left in this army. And there's still plenty of battle to be had, experience to be gained, weapons to be captured, so forth and so on. Napoleonic battery. Look at that, 1,200 kills. My word. They are really earning their keep. And I realize that I have been not pushing forward. So the Parrots, I'm fine with them being in the back. The Parrots are supposed to be kind of a long-range unit. I'm fine with them staying in the rear. But I haven't pushed the 12-pound howitzers up yet. I feel like I should. Should have by now. I do eventually, but I feel like I should have by now. I realized that they needed to be pushed up. So Prince is trying to push on my left, and 16th Infantry and 2nd Mounted are going to have to try and throw him back by themselves, which is going to be rough because they outnumber us quite handily. But the formed infantry are in woods. They've got 99% cover. They've got great weapons. The Harper's Ferry is an excellent weapon. It's why I feel it's worth fielding a small enough unit, even though I don't have enough to field a large. I only had like 900. It's still worth it. And then the repeater carbines, the 2nd Mounted Infantry is using, the rate of fire on them is just phenomenal, and they're absolutely enough to put Prince in a morale shock. All right, so it's a grindy fight. We are slowly pushing the Union out of these trees. I do not like prolonged forest engagements if you can avoid it, for basically exactly this reason. It's not really easy to get the upper hand. It's a grindy fight, but sometimes there's not really a way around it. I think if I'd positioned my little right wing here in advance, the Union wouldn't have had a way to kind of occupy where Gordon is right now. They would have kind of been where they are now, way to the south, and there would have been it would have been a cleaner fight. I'm still pretty happy with the way it goes down. It's just a little grindy at this phase, which is fine. I mean, that was kind of the intention of this particular engagement, is bloody the units, get them some experience, bloody the officers, get them some experience, and start promoting officers. I have a dearth of majors and lieutenant colonels, which makes sense. I don't have a bunch of full colonels. I don't have a bunch of generals, and as we get later and later into the war, I'm going to need them to lead units. So they've got to level up, basically. It's just kind of, there's no way around it. So now we've got, with the exception of Gordon, who's retreating, the Union has been pushed out of the sweet cover of the forest, although they're going to try and re-enter it. It's now incumbent upon me to make sure they don't get back into the woods, because once, if I keep them out of the woods, essentially the battle's over. They can try and make a push if they want, but they're going to be doing so over open terrain. And I mean, yes, at the moment now it's mostly smoothbore units, mostly doing the fighting, but even then they won't they won't be able to get that momentum, I don't think. So you notice, with the exception of that one disastrous push on the artillery, I've been trying to keep that really small smoothbore, really small Harper's Ferry unit always on the extreme flank of the battle. I don't ever want them to be really kind of in the traditional line of fire. And that's how you can utilize. So if you get Fayettevilles, for example, Fayettevilles are weapons that have these just ridiculous stats. They've got, great accuracy and great reload. They're very efficient, that kind of thing. If you ever get Fayettevilles, you only ever get 750 or 1,000. And so, previous gameplays, I've always been kind of like, why would I even bother with a unit of Fayettevilles? Like, I can't get to that critical mass. They don't need to be in the front line. They shouldn't be in the front line. Geez. So Alfred Kemper, who's been a general he's been with me since the beginning. Like, he was a major, I think, at the very, very first tutorial fight. Just bites it here. He's a division commander. It's unfortunate. I don't know. It just is what it is, I guess. So the Harper's Ferry unit has been harrying the flanks, and that's all I have them do. I don't really ever have them occupy the front line. They're not going to trade blows. That's not what their job is. They've taken more casualties than they should. That's my fault. And they can still be useful as a small brigade, especially as 16th gains more experience. They can really kind of have some pretty major impacts despite their small size. They can punch above their weight class, so to speak, as long as I'm careful to keep them on the edge of an engagement rather than in the heart of it. So I'm continuing to aggressively push my left flank. I'm trying to continue to deny operational territory to the Union and make sure that essentially I'm funneling them into my guns. I started trying to push some of these other units that have been on the edges of the fight, either resting up or just, there's not really a good angle for them to get in there. I'm trying to push them into the fight now. So I want to engage Carroll. I got my guys in urban terrain. That little farmhouse gives them some nice cover. Hard cover, actually. I don't know if the game differentiates between them in terms of what that does, but it's nice. I push 18th up with the intention of engaging Carroll, who's a cavalry unit. Or no, is it not Carroll? It's Bayard. Engaging that cav unit. And now they're pushing into the woods. I'm trying to push them back out. Close range Napoleonic fire should do the trick. Sends Gordon back, but hard stuff makes it into melee. The AI does a great job there. Great job of kind of this game's version of a flying column. So unfortunately, you've got one kind of sacrificial lamb unit, and then the melee unit you actually intend to make contact. However, you're watching now, poor hard stuff. He eats it from just about every angle, and that offensive thrust of theirs is not carried through with enough weight to make it stick. And now I've pushed the howitzer unit up to join with this main arm of the attack, and I'll actually end up pushing them up even more. So mismanagement on my part. The 5th howitzer, which is a bunch of 12-pounders, is, I think, the least effective of the units in this particular fight, and it's because I'm not using them correctly. So that's user error for sure. I'm not going to blame the unit. No, the 12-pound howitzers are basic. I use them, right on the ass of the infantry, and they perform beautifully in the course of this fight. And the 12-pound howitzers, I think you need to use them in more or less the same manner. And maybe a wee bit further back to rely on the fact that they're just better with shrapnel than they are with canister. But I've still got them too far back. Whereas that's the 7th artillery, which is the Parrott guns. They perform well, and I'm using them more or less in the role in which that they're intended to be used, which is to say kind of longer range. There are a couple of artillery units that are better used at longer range, and parrots in particular are best used as sort of, I mentioned this before, counter battery. So shooting other artillery units. They're a great way to morale shock or remove the large amounts of big, heavy batteries that you can sometimes see in these fights, where, especially in the later war, the Union has a huge quantitative and often also qualitative advantage in the realm of their artillery. And the Confederacy, you'll see my armory later on, it's all Napoleons. I have to be either very aggressive with it or start trying to capture guns or something, because I won't have access to large numbers of 3-inch ordnance guns or other longer range artillery pieces. So my mistake here, I push 5th howitzer up, and I don't have infantry to support. And so Gordon or Crawford, I forget, one of the two, starts kind of picking at them. Now, they're in the woods or they've got cover, all that kind of thing. So they're mostly okay. And once they get online, they start really tearing it up. But not to the level that they could have, if I had them protected. Okay, so we've got 18th Infantry in a position to engage Bayard, but I don't have a way to kind of force them into that corner. So they do break out, and I don't think I end up getting the whole unit, it's fine. That's more just kind of extra casualties than anything else. But yeah, the Union's in a real bad place right now. So they're firing uphill, they're in the open, they're firing at units in cover. And these are the conditions that basically you as the player should always be trying to engineer. Always have your troops in cover whenever possible. Whenever possible, try and engage the enemy in the open. And whenever possible, the dream is to do it downhill. That's, that's like perfect circumstances. You're not going to get that every fight. You're not going to get that every engagement. You just do the best you can with what you have access to. So yeah, Bayard's decided to run away. I'm not going to be able to really run him down unless I could have dismounted or remounted a 2nd Dragoon and pushed them up to meet Bayard. They're not doing a whole lot right now, are they? God dang, look at that battlefield. Woo. It's just torn apart by artillery. These green fields just wrecked. It's one of the nice, as the game goes on, the battlefields look more and more like the First World War, and both armies have large units with large access to rifled guns and just crap loads of artillery. And so early on, the game feels very Napoleonic. It's a battle of maneuver. Open field maneuver isn't suicidal and that kind of thing. And later on, it's just not the case. So, ceding the fact that I'm not going to get to Bayard, I decide to push 18th to support. I forget who I have fighting Carroll, but to support that mission up there and to try and shatter Carroll and that unit of skirmishers as well. And so, in the north, I could push and try and meet the Union in the woods, but then I would be undoing basically everything that I've done. So right now I've got a commanding strategic tactical position in that I have the flag. I have an uphill position that's, we'll call it entrenched, but basically it's protected by cover and that kind of thing. And to come to them, they're in cover. I'd have to do so over open terrain. Yes, I'd be attacking downhill, but that's barely an advantage. And so generally, I think that, letting them have this bit of trees, as we'll call it, cover, is fine. I don't see any profit in coming out to meet them. And all it would do would be to Just more casualties for me. So the skirmishers are going to keep on shooting at Bayard. It's not a very effective counter to them, but it works. There's Carol. All right, so that's 2 units. I deploy them with the intention of preventing Bayard from making a move on the flag. Because, I mean, theoretically it's possible that the cav unit could push on the flag, and that would be not great. All right, so that's 2 supply wagons. So that's some money I've thrown away. Utilizing that supply wagon for supply, like if you capture the supplies, it ends up transferring into straight cash, and that's some money I've thrown away by using it as weapons, which it's fine. Money isn't really an issue at this point. It's guns, and so for me, killing more Union soldiers and capturing X% of the guns, and I have no idea what the ratio is. It's not a very it's not a very large number. I want to say it's 0.3%, or sorry, 3%, 30% of whatever you kill, you get a gun from, or something like that. It's not a very large number. I realize that I'm trading fire from cover to units in cover, and I pull 19th and 15th back, so that if they want to come to me, basically the goal is I want to shoot them in that creek. If they want to come to me, I can shoot them when they're in the open. I'm perfectly fine to let the clock run out and just not kill these units. Now they oblige me. They oblige me and come at me, but they don't need to. And the AI just does. So I happily keep backing up and letting them, engage while they're in the open in a creek bed. They've got very little or no cover. That's a perfect opportunity for me to shoot at them. I don't need to take these losses for no reason. Yeah, and every time they push, it's a perfect storm of being fired at from a number of different units, and eventually they start shattering one by one. Looks like it's Geary's turn. And he sees a clear line to the flag, so he's going to try and just run that gauntlet with predictable results. It's not much longer now. I'm pretty sure the game calls it, throws in the towel, so to speak. 1,800. Wow. So we'll take a look at some of the kill ratios, but the Napoleonic unit pulled off 1,800 casualties because I learned to use the unit properly, basically. So 5th Howitzers pulled off 700, which is fine. They do okay for themselves. But the 4th Artillery, once I use them as an infantry support gun, basically, they really impress me. 1,800 is the kind of numbers I would expect to see from a 24-pounder unit. That's excellent. More half-hearted pushes out of the woods. You punish them for trying to come out and play, and then back up. I don't want to be trading blows with units who are in cover. Hard stuff and green are not long for this world. Too much fire from too many directions. Where's my supply wagon? Yeah, I need to make sure. Yeah, more proactive with the supply. In these larger battles, I kind of get sloppy about it sometimes. So both those units have both shattered. All right, and the game calls it. All right, so 5,000 to 17,000, 18,000. 17,000, give or take. It's great casualty ratio. It's not perfect. I could have done better. This is a messy fight, but look at some of those kill ratios. 1,900 for the Napoleonic unit, the 2 Enfield units, the Stark, like look at that. The second cav, 10-1, fantastic. 15th and 14th infantry with Enfields, just phenomenal. 2,000 kills, promotions across the board, lots of new colonels, which is excellent, a new general, which is fantastic. We did lose Alfred Kemper, so basically net zero. Actually, it's still a net loss because Kemper was a better general than the other guy is. Captured a unit's worth of palmettos, which is fantastic. A couple of Springfields, a couple of Enfields. Did okay. I don't think we captured a lot of artillery. And so thank you for watching. That was our build-up towards second Bull Run. Second Corps did a messy fight, but we're pretty happy with the results, and we'll keep it going. Thanks again. This is Fiasco signing out.